I thought I knew him. Until that day, I never thought I'd be telling this story. For the longest time, I believed I knew him, like really knew him. He was one of those people who just felt safe to be around. Kind, thoughtful, always the first to show up when someone needed help. We grew up together, went to the same school, shared so many memories. To me, he wasn't just a friend, he was like family. But everything changed on that one day. And nothing's been the same since. It started out like any other afternoon. I was heading home, scrolling through my phone when I got a message from him. Just a simple, "Hey, can we talk?" But something about it felt off. It was short, cold, not like him at all. Still, I didn't think much of it. We met up at our usual spot near the park, where we'd spent countless hours talking about life, dreams, even heartbreaks. But this time, the look in his eyes, it was different. Distant. Almost like he wasn't really there with me. I kept asking if everything was okay. He smiled, but it was the kind of smile you give when you're hiding something. And then he told me something that made my stomach drop. In that moment, it was like I didn't even recognize the person standing in front of me. Looking back, there were signs. Little things I brushed off. Moments that didn't make sense until now. I had trusted him with everything, and maybe that was my mistake. What he told me that day changed everything I thought I knew about him. And, to be honest, I still don't know how to feel about it. But before I tell you what happened next, you need to hear what led up to that day. It all started a few months before that strange conversation in the park. We were both going through different things, but we always kept in touch. He had just started a new job in the city, something in finance, I think. He didn't talk much about it, just said it was complicated and that it kept him busy. I didn't press him. That was how our friendship worked. No pressure, just trust. But slowly, he began to change. At first, it was small stuff. He'd cancel plans last minute, wouldn't reply to texts for days, and when we did talk, he seemed distracted, like his mind was somewhere else. I thought maybe he was just stressed. Everyone goes through phases, right? But then I started noticing things that didn't sit right with me. One day, I bumped into an old mutual friend who asked me if I'd seen him lately. I said, yeah, just the other week. And then she gave me this weird look and said, "That's strange. I heard he moved away." I laughed it off, but something about that stuck with me. Why would someone say he moved if he was still around? I asked him about it later, half joking, but he brushed it off and changed the subject. That was the first time I really felt that something wasn't right. Then came the night I saw him in a part of town he never went to. I was in a rideshare, passing through, when I caught a glimpse of him standing on a corner, talking to someone. It wasn't just that he was there, it was the way he looked. Nervous. Glancing around like he didn't want to be seen. I almost called out to him, but something held me back. From that moment, I started paying more attention. Things he said didn't line up. His stories had holes. I'd ask a simple question and get vague answers. And the more I asked, the more distant he became. I told myself I was overthinking it, but deep down I knew I wasn't. There was something going on. So when he finally asked to meet that day in the park, I thought maybe he was ready to talk. Ready to open up. But nothing could have prepared me for what he was about to say. It wasn't just shocking. It made me question everything I thought I knew about him, and even about myself. And that's when things really started to unravel. When he finally started talking that day in the park, his voice was low, almost like he was afraid someone might overhear. He kept glancing over his shoulder, his hands fidgeting with the zipper on his jacket. That's when he told me there were things he hadn't been honest about, things he'd been hiding not just from me, but from everyone. He didn't give me all the details right away, just a few pieces that didn't quite make sense on their own. Something about a mistake he made, and how it spiraled into something much bigger than he ever imagined. I pressed him for more, but he wouldn't say. Not yet. He just said it wasn't safe to talk there, that he shouldn't have even reached out, and then like that, he stood up to leave. I sat there for a while after he walked off, trying to piece everything together. I kept thinking, what kind of mistake could make someone look over their shoulder like that? What could be so bad that he couldn't even say it out loud? Over the next few days, I started digging. I reached out to people we used to hang out with. Most of them hadn't seen or heard from him in months. One even told me he'd ghosted them after borrowing money and never paying it back. That didn't sound like the guy I knew. But when I thought about it, it did match the version of him I'd seen lately. Distant, unpredictable, always tired, always distracted. Something had changed him, and now it felt like I was chasing shadows, trying to figure out where the real story began. One night, I got a call from an unknown number. I answered, and there was just silence on the line. But I could hear breathing. I said his name, thinking maybe it was him, but no one spoke. After a few seconds, the line went dead. I don't know why, but it chilled me to the bone. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking, was that him? Or was it someone else? And if it was him, why didn't he say anything? I started to realize that whatever he was caught up in, it was bigger than I thought. And maybe he wasn't just hiding something. Maybe he was in real danger. Or worse, maybe he wasn't the person I thought he was at all. The silence after that phone call stuck with me. It wasn't just the sound, it was the feeling. Like someone was watching, listening. I started noticing things I normally wouldn't. A car that parked outside my place 2 nights in a row. A man on the train who seemed to always get off at the same stop as me. Maybe I was just being paranoid, or maybe whatever he was involved in had now found its way to me. I hadn't heard from him since that day in the park. Every message I sent stayed unread. His phone rang, but no one picked up. I even went by his apartment, but it was empty. Not just quiet, like cleared out. The curtains were gone, the lights off, and the mailbox overflowing. It looked like someone had left in a hurry. And still, no answers. Just more questions. One night, I got a message from a random username. No name, no profile picture. It just said, "You're looking in the wrong places. Stop asking questions." That was it. I didn't respond. I just sat there staring at the screen, trying to figure out what the hell was going on. And that's when I started to feel it wasn't just about him anymore. I was now a part of whatever this was. I remembered something strange he said during our last conversation. He mentioned a name, someone I'd never heard of before. I thought it was just part of his rambling, but now it felt important. I searched it online. Not much came up, except for one article about a man involved in a financial fraud case a few years back. Same last name as the guy he mentioned. Same city. But the article said he disappeared before he could be arrested. The more I looked into it, the more things started connecting. That job in finance he said he had, it didn't exist. The company name he gave me was real, but he wasn't listed as an employee. I even called their office pretending to be a recruiter, and they told me no one by that name ever worked there. At that point, I didn't know if he was in trouble, or if he was the trouble. My mind kept going back to the way he looked in the park, nervous, guilty, like someone who'd done something they couldn't take back. I started to wonder if I'd ever really known him at all, or if I was just the person he used to look normal. The scariest part was how deep this went. The warnings, the lies, the fake job, the missing apartment, it all pointed to something way bigger than just one bad decision. And now, here I was stuck in the middle of it, with no idea who to trust. Then one night, someone knocked on my door. Not a loud knock. Just soft, slow taps. Like they didn't want anyone else to hear. I looked through the peephole, and my heart dropped. It was him. But he didn't look the same. He stood there in the hallway, hood up, eyes sunken, like he hadn't slept in days. His face was pale, lips cracked, and there was this haunted look in his eyes that made my stomach twist. I hesitated before opening the door. Part of me wanted to slam it shut and pretend none of this was happening. But the other part, curious, confused, still holding on to the friend I used to know, slowly turned the lock. He didn't say anything at first. Just stepped inside like he'd been running forever and finally found a place to breathe. I locked the door behind him, heart racing, and asked where he'd been. He looked at me, his voice barely above a whisper, and said, "I don't have much time." That's when things took a turn I didn't expect. He pulled something out of his jacket, an old flash drive wrapped in tape. He held it out to me like it weighed 100 pounds. "If anything happens to me," he said, "don't go to the police. Don't trust anyone. Just watch what's on this." I asked him what was going on, begged him to explain. But he shook his head. "It's too dangerous. I made a mistake, but someone else made it worse. Much worse." He looked me straight in the eye and said, "They're not just after me anymore." That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about money or some bad job choice. This was something deeper, something criminal, maybe even political. I asked him if this had anything to do with that name he mentioned before. He didn't answer directly, but his silence said enough. Then suddenly his phone buzzed. One look at the screen and all the color drained from his face. He stuffed the phone back in his pocket and whispered, "They found me." Before I could ask who they were, he was at the door again, ready to leave. I grabbed his arm. "You can't just disappear again," I said. "Tell me what's going on." He paused, breathing heavy, eyes darting like he expected someone to burst in any second. "There's more than one of them," he said. I wasn't working alone. That was the second twist. He hadn't just gotten himself into trouble. He was part of something bigger. A group. He didn't say what kind, just that they'd been doing something behind the scenes, moving money, hiding things in plain sight. And now, someone inside that group had turned on them. Betrayed them all. He didn't know who. That's why he'd been hiding. Everything I thought I knew, every assumption I made, was suddenly flipped. This wasn't just my friend with a secret. This was a friend tangled in something dark, dangerous, and far from over. And now, with that flash drive in my hands, I was part of it too. Then he left. Just like that. Disappeared into the night. And I was left standing in my apartment, alone, with a flash drive that could change everything. I stared at the flash drive for hours that night, unsure if I should open it. Part of me was terrified of what I'd find. Part of me needed to know the truth. Eventually, I plugged it into my laptop. No password. Just one folder. Inside were dozens of documents, emails, and video files. The more I opened, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about my friend. It was a financial crime ring, fake companies laundered money, digital accounts tied to real people who had no idea their names were being used. And he was right in the middle of it. One video showed him in an office, talking to someone whose face was blurred. They were going over data, transactions, offshore accounts. He wasn't just a part of the operation. He had helped build it. But near the end of the video, he said something that made my heart stop. "We need to pull out. They're using this to fund something else. Something political." Suddenly it all made sense. The paranoia, the fake job, the silence. He hadn't just made a mistake. He tried to get out, and now he was being hunted by the very people he once worked with. The ones who didn't want the truth getting out. I made a copy of the drive and went to a journalist I trusted. Someone who'd reported on similar things before. Within days, the files were verified. Names started surfacing. Some of them were familiar. Politicians. Executives. People we see in the news all the time. It all started to unravel. But just when I thought it was over, I got another message.
No sender.
Just one sentence. "You gave them the wrong copy." I opened my drawer. The flash drive was gone. That's when I realized he never gave me the real one. And maybe, just maybe, I was never meant to. That's the last I heard from him. I still don't know where he went, or if he's even alive. But one thing's clear. He wasn't just running from danger. He was hiding something even bigger. And I was just another piece in his story. After that message, I couldn't sleep for days. I tore my place apart looking for the original flash drive, convinced I had missed something. But it was gone. And the copy I gave the journalist, well, it was enough to start something, but clearly not everything. The investigation did go public. Some arrests were made. A few names were exposed. But there was always a sense that the real story was still out there, just out of reach. I kept thinking about him. Where he could have gone. Why he trusted me just enough to get involved, but not enough to give me the full truth. Maybe it was his way of protecting me. Or maybe I was just another backup plan if things went wrong. It's hard to tell now. What I do know is that whatever I thought I understood about trust, about friendship, even about right and wrong, it all changed after this. Some of the people connected to the crimes vanished before anything could be proven. Others denied everything, hid behind lawyers and closed doors. The news eventually moved on. The headlines faded. But not for me. I still carry the weight of that night, of that knock on the door, and the look in his eyes when he said, "I don't have much time." I still walk a little more carefully now. I watch who I talk to, who I trust. The world feels different, more layered, more complicated. It's easy to think we know people, that we understand their choices. But the truth? Most of us are only shown the version they want us to see. He was my friend. Maybe still is, wherever he is now. I don't know if he'll ever come back or if this story will ever fully come to light. But I've learned something through all of this. Truth isn't always clear, and not everyone wants it to be found. And if you ever think you know someone completely, you might want to think again. Because I thought I knew him.
Until that day.